If you're thinking about setting up your own pool room, then this is a must-watch video where I'll give you some tips on some of the things that you need to consider before doing so. If you're not thinking of setting one up or you've got one already, then stick around anyway and just laugh at some of the mistakes that I've made while building this. Let's start with one of the most important points and probably the part that most people can't get past, and that's the space that you need to house a table like this. The overall size of it is 7 feet by 4 feet. So if we take the width and length that we need, it needs to be at least that to fit the table in. But remember, you've also got your queue as well. Now, UK queues on standard tend to be about 57 inches. So you need to allow 57 inches from there to there at least, on both sides. So 57 inches, quick maths, is about 142 centimeters, I think. So you need to times that by 2 because you need it here and you need it here. That's 284 centimeters. Add in your 4 feet for your width is another 120 centimeters on top of it. So it's about 402 centimeters that you need. Now, it would be a bit tight just to go with that. Some queues can go up to about 60 inches. So I think width-wise, you need at least 4.5 meters. Length-wise, we'll do the same thing. So we need our 57-inch queue at that side and that side. That was, what did we say it was? 284 centimeters. Add on your 7 feet, which is about another 210. So that is 284 plus 2. That is 494 centimeters that you need as an absolute minimum. So that's almost 5 meters. I would give yourself a lot more play on that as well. So maybe about 5.5 meters in total is what you would need just to fit the pool table. And that is where I ran into my first problem when building this shed. So width-wise, my shed is absolutely fine. I've got about 5 meters from that wall there to my windows and doors at that side. Lengthwise, you can see here I've put a tape measure on the floor. I've got a big long wall here. If I look at the tape measure, I've got, well, it's only a 5 meter tape measure, ends there, so I've maybe got, what, 5 meters 30 there, so I've got possibly just enough room. But if I made the shed just that size, I'd have no room for anything else other than the pool table. So why didn't I just extend that wall further instead of creating this strange little shape here and here? So my shed is actually a hexagonal shape, but there's a good reason for that. Now, if you're building something that is 4.5 by 5.5 meters long, then that's quite a significant structure. And unless you've got a really big garden, it's probably going to take up a significant proportion of it. So this is where I ran into some problems because I wanted to try and hide it away. I didn't want to block all the light that's coming into my house. So I tried to build it into the corner. Now I've got a wall here which goes straight along there. So I wanted to build it into that. Now if I move over to the other side of the garden, I've got a wall that goes straight up there. Unfortunately, those two don't meet. If they did, I would just create a rectangular structure. But as they move behind the shed, so this wall here, it reaches a certain point and then it curves in the way. It changes to about a 45-degree angle and it meets that other wall down there. So that's where the problems ran into. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking that I'm in the middle of winter here, but it's actually the 4th of August. This is just what a Scottish summer looks like. So if I move back in to look at this wall again, so this back wall, that's where my wall meets. And that is about 5 meters 30. Now, it's obviously big enough for a pool table, but I wouldn't have fitted anything else in there. You wouldn't even have had a seat. So that's why I had to create this structure, this kind of hexagonal that moves round the same way that the wall does. But it did create one kind of cool thing that I did. If I move back out, and apologies for the noise of the traffic, I wanted to create a straight wall here. And you see I've got funny little brackets I've just hooked some solar lights up to at the moment. But when the weather's good, I put my projector screen up there. I've got like about 120-inch screen in the garden that I can sit on my deck and watch some stuff. I tend to watch some boxing matches or football matches on there, but it's been a pretty cool turn of events to get that, we would say. The next thing to think about is getting some power into your shed, because you're obviously going to need a light above your table to be able to play, but you're going to probably want to put other things in here as well. You know, I've got the TV, got record player up there, so I've needed plug points. I've got more lights than just the light above the table. I've got sockets everywhere for the likes of my beer dispenser to be plugged in. I've got a fridge behind the bar. Apologies for all the soft drinks there. My son thought it'd be funny to do that for some reason. But you're going to want power in here. You might have noticed I do have a fuse box in there, so I have had power come from the house into here. I don't know if you do need a fuse box for it. I had to get one installed because I've got the hot tub out there, so it needs a 6mm cable coming from the fuse box in the house to power the hot tub, because there's so much power going into it. But in terms of if you're just going for lights and sockets, you could, apologies, I'm not an electrician, but you could possibly take a feed from your house. I do know that if you're taking from a socket in your house and then put more sockets in here, I think you need to put an isolator switch in. I don't know how the lights would work, but let me just show you the outside, what you need to think about if you are putting a fuse in here. I said fuse, I obviously meant fuse box, and apologies to the Sparkies out there, that's probably not even the right terminology. I think it's a consumer unit, possibly. But anyway, mine's is here, conveniently placed right in the middle of the fucking house, so I couldn't just take a feed from that and take it outside without drilling through ceilings and walls and all that kind of stuff. Would have made a mess. Somebody did suggest just taking it across my ceiling and putting trunking in place, but it would have looked terrible. So what I did instead was took a 6mm cable from here. You can possibly just see it up the top. It goes up into there, so it goes upstairs in my house. There's a cupboard right above that. It goes through the cupboard and into my loft, so it's well hidden. And then it continues outside. Let me just show you outside. So that cable from my loft then comes out here. It's kind of hidden behind the drain pipe, underneath my patio and into the shed. My fuse box is round about there, and there's a short feed to the isolator switch for the hot tub. So you need to think about the electrics that you want in your shed as well as the space. Next up, you want to think about your lighting. And this is probably the area that I have made the most mistakes in. I stupidly installed 9 spotlights myself for this entire area, thinking that that would be enough. So remember, this is about 4.5 meters in width by about 5.5 meters there. We've got an additional, each other side is about 3 meters in length. So point to point, I think it's about 10.5, 11 meters in total. So 9 spotlights is just nowhere near enough that you would need this. It was probably fine just for playing. You know, the 3 above the table was just enough to light the table. The 3 in that corner and the 3 in that corner were enough for it to feel comfortable. But when I built this, I didn't think that I would then be filming content in it. And then what I encountered was, you know, if I stand back here, there's quite a lot of, there used to be quite a lot of darkness in here. So I've changed things quite a bit. So I've got rid of all my spotlights there and in that corner, and I've replaced them with really bright, it's probably still called a spotlight, but there's six daylight bulbs in there, and that's important. I think for above your table, you want daylight bulbs. You want it to be as bright as possible. So I've put 6 there, 6 there to try and light this part as well, because I do a lot of my presenting from there. My camera is here, and the back of the camera faces onto what you've seen, the doors and the windows. So a lot of the natural light comes in that way. It's bright over there, it's quite dark over there. But I realise that not everyone is going to have those problems. Just light it enough that, you know, it's comfortable for you. But for above your table, you definitely want daylight bulbs. You definitely want something bright. You don't want to see shadows on your table. And I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, 8Ball Direct, who last week sent me the I-beam light, which is fantastic. You know, I put this up a few days ago, and it makes everything so brighter. There's very few shadows. It is absolutely amazing. And I did speak to 8Ball Direct about this, because the other thing that you need to think about is, if it's a shed that you're building, you probably run into the same problems as me, that, you know, I kind of told the person the size that I wanted, but maybe didn't spend enough time thinking about the height. So if I go back to here, where it is at its shortest, you know, I am 5'10", so it's maybe just, I don't know, what, 6'2", 3 or something. It's not massive. That's the lowest point. It's got a pitched roof, so it's a lot higher over that side, and it comes down there. It means that above my table is probably about 2 meters. So you can't really suspend anything down from there, or it would be too close to the playing area. You'd hit your head, you'd hit your cue. So you kind of need a flush light if you've got the same kind of height restraints as me. So I did speak to 8Ball Direct. I love their halo lights, but they do have to be suspended, and I think they need to be at least 2 meters plus above the table. So they recommended the I-beam, which I think is about £130 or so. It was so easy to fit. You just push it in place, basically. You put it in 2 brackets and you push it in place. Comes with an extra long cord, so it was really easy to fit into my existing lighting setup, and the light that comes off it is brilliant, and it looks pretty cool as well. Prior to that, I'd removed some of the spotlights and just put in a little square LED, but it just wasn't great. It didn't light the table how I wanted, and there was quite a lot of glare off it as well. So as I was standing back here, you know, I was getting glare. This takes it away. You know, there's not a lot of glare comes off this, and I've not put in the. It comes with kind of side protectors as well, that stops the glare going to, you know, if you're setting up a few tables, it stops it going to other tables. I don't even think that I need it in here. So think about the lighting, and not just in terms of the electrical lighting. Think about the position of your doors and windows as well. So you'll have seen I've got the 2 French doors there, and I've got 2 big windows as well. So it does let a lot of light in here. The way I've positioned it is, and you know, this was more accident than design, because I have had a pool room before and I experienced this exact problem. If you've got your doors and windows facing where the sun comes in, the sun will bleach your cloth. It will change the colour of it. It'll probably affect the balls as well. So you need, if you can't get around it, you need good blinds or curtains, I would say, and keep them closed during the day when the sun is coming in. Fortunately, as you've seen, I'm in Scotland, so we don't get a lot of sun, but when we do, the sun is over that side. It comes over there and is kind of shielded by my neighbour's house, so I don't actually get it coming in here too much at all. So I'm going to have no issues with this being bleached, but I do have blinds on the doors and windows as well, just in case. So definitely think about that as well, just to prolong the life of your table and your cloth. Think about the position of the doors and windows. And also, you know, I had thought about putting a window over that side, but could you imagine if you're down in a shop playing and you're looking directly into a window? It's going to affect the playing of this. So consider your lighting and your doors and windows. Please also don't make the mistake that I did with my last pool room. So I've been in this house now for I think 4.5, maybe 5 years. Previous to that, I had an amazing pool room set up at my last house. Similar kind of setup. So it was ultimately a shed, you know, a wooden structure that I had insulated, and that's what I've done here. I think if you go for a permanent structure, so brickwork and stuff, you might not have the same kind of problems as you do with a wooden structure. So what you need to understand is, with a shed in the winter, it's going to get cold. I can come in here at any point and it's about 4 or 5 degrees in here. That is far too cold to play pool in. So remove your cue, don't leave your cue out in a shed. The change in temperatures will warp your cue. So take that in. Everything else is probably okay to be left in, but 4 or 5 degrees is too cold to play pool in. In the summer, you get the opposite. It is warmer in the shed than it is outside. So I can be in here and it is, you know, 28, 29, 30 degrees. If I open the windows and stuff, it doesn't make a lot of difference. So you get the extreme temperatures. And that might be because I have insulated every single inch of this. So it will retain all the heat. So think about that, about storing especially your cue in those extreme temperatures. But what you will probably be considering is heating the place, and this is a mistake that I made. So I got 2 of the wall-mounted electric panel heaters, and I set them during the winter to stay at a constant temperature of 16 degrees, just so that it was nice, you know, a night, kind of, well, comfortable, shall we say. I would wear a jumper and it was comfortable to come in, but also I wanted to try and maintain the playability of my table. So you will notice it does play different depending on the temperature. You know, if it's cold, you're cold, which is horrible, but it's not great. When it's really warm, it becomes humid, so your table retains all the moisture. You need to iron it to try and get the moisture out and stuff like that, but it will play heavy. So if you can kind of keep it at a constant temperature, it will help that. But electric storage heaters are not the way to go. I moved from that house, I got my final electricity bill and it was over £2,000. I will caveat that by saying, yes, that was on, but also my hot tub was on to, I don't know, 32 degrees. Somebody said that you should leave it on, you know, to a lower temperature because it's more economical than trying to heat it up quickly to the right temperature. So I thought the same would apply to the radiators, but they cost a bomb. What I've found is that the best way to heat a place like this, if you've not got fixed radiators, which I have considered, don't know if I can do it within a wooden structure, but I have thought maybe I could take a feed from the house and get a proper radiator in here. The best thing is, sorry, I've got it in the corner, I've got an oil drum radiator. Doesn't cost a lot to heat it up, and you can keep it on. It's not too expensive, but when you switch it off, it continues to radiate heat, so you get the benefit after it's switched off. You don't get that with the electrical heaters. So that's definitely something to consider, because it could end up costing you a fortune to try and maintain a constant standard of playability. But the other thing is, think about it before you build it. So what I said to the guy who built my shed is that I want the stud work 600 millimeters apart. And that was because I always planned to put plasterboard up. And he didn't do it the last one that he built for me, so I told him to do it in this one. And it makes it easier when you're insulating as well, so the insulation fits nice and neat into the 600 spacing, and the plasterboard goes on top as well. Again, forgot the roof. Didn't say it for the roof. So he's done some kind of weird thing with the roof where I've got 2 sides that are the same height, there and there. Those 2 sides are the same height, and then that wall, they're the ones that slope, obviously to get all the rain off the roof. Now, the supports are quite long at points. You know, we're talking over 5 meters. It is 6-inch wood, I think, and he's just kind of randomly spaced them. Now, it's obviously taken quite a lot of weight, so it would be quite hard to fix this now, but I should have said to make them straight and 600 apart, because I have completely fucked up my ceiling trying to plasterboard the ceiling. It is a nightmare when you're not working from straight lines. But also, what probably would have been better, as I said, if this was higher, because it'll cause problems for people who are taller than me. It's fine over that side, but I could have got this a bit higher, and then if I had thought about it, so I think it's 2.4 meters there, as well as the wooden structure being in place to take the weight of the roof, I could have put beams straight from there, straight to there. It didn't have to be pitched like the roof. I could have made a straight roof, which would have been a lot easier for the plasterboard to go up, but I think it would have been a lot better looking as well, that if it was a flat thing rather than, you know, my ceiling very obviously goes like that, and you can see it on the light, and it does bother me that I don't think that it looks particularly good. So once you've considered all those things and hopefully learned from the costly mistakes that I've made, then comes the time to actually put a pool table in place. And you might be wondering what type of pool table to buy, because there's loads in the market. Now, if that is you, if you're thinking about which one would be right for you, then you might want to check out this video here, where I talk about some of the more popular options, the pros and cons of each, and give you my honest opinion on them. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy this one.